Waters presents On the Box.
Welcome to another edition of On the Box. Your favorite hosts could not be here, so they hired the homeless.
Let me ask you a question really fast before I forget, because my train of thought. Do you know the guy in the beginning of the video that lays down backwards?
Yes.
What was he doing?
He was practicing yoga.
Seriously?
I have no idea. Why did
you weren't
people?
there?
I was not there.
Okay, well,
yeah.
he was being disruptive.
Being disruptive. A lot of
That
people
helps.
are disruptive when we open air preach.
Yeah, I was just curious because he lays down very awkwardly, and I was just
Yeah.
wondering what that was about, and I've always wanted to ask that question.
He wanted to take a nap.
Thank you for having me here today.
Yes, this is
This is
Greg L.
awesome. Sassafras.
Sesser.
Welcome to
Sesser.
Friday's edition of On the Box.
Yes. What are you doing this weekend?
You know what? I've been back to work, so it's been hectic, and it's going to be with the family this week, in church and family and nothing. You know, have you ever had those days when you look at your wife and you go, there's nothing on the calendar, or nothing, and you just want to keep it that way?
Kind of like my weekend. Ask me what I'm doing.
What are you doing, Mark?
Mind your own business.
Okay. Actually, I know what you're doing because they asked me to drive, and I was like...
To Denver?
Well, no, not to Denver, to the airport, and it was like 3 o'clock in the morning.
3:30. We are going to Transform Conference in Denver, Colorado. It is not too late to sign up or just to simply show up. I'll be there, Lord willing.
I will not.
How long is the plane ride? Any idea?
Well, it's halfway across the country, and it's 5 to 6 hours to get to New York, so you're looking at about 2.5.
You know, my aunt and uncle are going to be there.
Are they coming?
Yes.
They're
That's what they
coming.
plan on.
Oh, that's neat.
All right.
That's good. Hey, this is hitting me in the face.
Hey, well, we are going to answer questions today. Lots of them, Lord willing. We have no pithy little videos to show you, no cute little pictures. I'm not going to be yelling and screaming. I'm not Tony Miano, all right? So this is what we do. We answer questions. We want your questions, so fill it up inside the chat room. And as we see them, we'll try to answer them. Some of them are really quick answers. So don't be afraid to answer any question. And if it's dealing with evangelism.
Yes,
Right? Apologetics,
absolutely.
evangelism.
Yeah, and anything else that you might come up with. Sure. In the
Greg
chat
will-
room, right?
Greg will answer any other question you have outside of evangelism and apologetics. Let's jump
Well,
right
before you
into
ask
it.
your question, though, I want to say there is a looks like almost most definite opportunity if you're in Southern California to witness. It looks like the grocery workers are going to go on strike. They're thinking it looks pretty definite. And what a great opportunity. You've got 30 to 50 people outside a grocery store that are going to be standing there all day. What an opportunity to go onto a
Do
parking
they
lot.
pick it?
Yeah, they pick it. Weren't you around for the last grocery strike?
I have my food delivered.
Okay. Well, here's my question, though. And I don't know if this is just a Southern California thing or if it's nationwide, if it's all of California. I don't know if grocery workers are going on strike everywhere. But if they strike, and that's your only store, would you go out and witness to them and then walk in their store, break their picket line, go out and shop, and then leave? Because
Yeah, I don't care.
you don't. But you would go out and witness to them, and then as they're listening, then say thank you very much, and then walk in their store, which is really
Yeah.
going to irritate them.
Actually, I would, as I'm coming out with my shopping cart, I would engage in a conversation with my shopping cart full of stuff that I would normally purchase over at Costco or some
Right.
other place that's independent.
Right. So you would be belligerent.
Huh.
Okay. I was just curious. Well, so if you're in Southern California, it looks like they're ready to go. You're going to be looking at Ralph's and Vons and Albertsons. There's gonna be
Everybody?
lots of there's like the 3 big ones.
Are prices going to go down?
No.
All right. Question number 1.
So what do we care? Prices
What-
aren't going down.
What do you say to someone who wants to talk about other people's religions or worldviews instead of their own? So you're open air preaching, an individual's up there and he says, what about Islam? What about Muslims? You mean to tell me 1.6 billion Muslims in the world are wrong and they're going to hell? What do you say?
Well, I've heard recently people say, are you Islamic? Are you a Muslim? No. Then let's stick with what your primary concern is. I've heard that, and I like that. I'm being kind of careful when I'm open airing or even one-on-one when people just want to argue for argument's sake. I've noticed that people have no intention of listening to anything that I'm presenting and no desire to hear the gospel
What's
at
that?
all. Yeah, right, exactly. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, okay. So you're losing a train of thought. But you get what I'm saying? I'm not going to... you sit there, they have no desire. They just want to argue. They just want to be in a debate they may enjoy.
I disagree with that. I disagree.
I left my 4th period to come do this. This is the exact same thing. I might as well stay there and get paid.
Hi, Mom.
How would you answer that?
You know, I would answer it the same way. I would say, hey, are you Muslim? No. Are you considering becoming Muslim? No. Okay, well, I don't want to talk about Islam. If you were considering it, then I'd be willing to talk about it.
But they're considering converting to
Right.
okay.
Right.
But what if they had a friend, though? They could say, well, I have a friend who's...
Yeah.
You would answer it then, wouldn't you?
No, I wouldn't. Probably. I mean, I'll try to avoid it. And the reason why is because I think that there's a reason why God has strategically placed this individual before me. You know, the word says that the steps of a righteous man are ordered by the Lord. You know, he knows our rising up. He knows our sitting down. And I would look at him and say, you know, I think that there is a reason specifically why you're here today and why I'm here today. I'm curious, what is your worldview? What do you think happens after we die? I would always try to bring it back to that individual.
Yeah, and it's true. And if they want to talk about Islam and they want to talk about Mormonism and they want to talk about Catholicism, you could be there for 2 hours, which is going to take up some time that you could be talking to somebody else. So you're saying stick to their worldview. Let's deal with that, and then we can move on. You know, I talked to a tweaker about 2 weeks ago.
I just started tweeting.
No, tweaker. It's person who is continually abuses methamphetamines.
Ah,
It was the first time. I've talked to a lot of drunk people, and my goodness, I mean, it was...
I was way off.
And it was just talking like that continually. It was very difficult. It was a very difficult conversation. And in that case, I gave him a booklet track, so that he could read it the next day. But that was different. He was like that, where it was all over the map.
You know, for sure, it's difficult talking to somebody who's under the influence. I recently was talking to a family member of mine, and he had a little bit too much to drink. And I even shared with him, I go, look, I'm capitalizing on this opportunity because I rarely see you. But if I were to come across somebody who'd been drinking the way you do, I avoid that individual altogether. Why? Because they're not coherent. They're all over the place. They don't want to engage into an intelligent conversation. But I love you, so I'm willing to get whatever I can in at this point. But I've talked to people. In fact, I remember one time I was out on Hollywood Boulevard. There was this guy. He was on drugs, and I tried to talk to him, and he didn't know where I was at or where he was at. And I looked over at him and I said, "Hey, can I pray for you?" He goes, no, man.
How was that?
That was just like that, right? Think of your fourth period class.
Yeah, okay.
And his mom was there, and his mom said, receive prayer, Junior, right?
Was she from the South?
I don't know where she was. That was my Polish accent.
Oh, okay.
But so I said, all right, let me pray for you. So I put my hand on his shoulder, and I started praying for him. When I was all done praying, he looked at me, and he goes, what just happened? What did you just do? And I went, what are you talking about? He's all, I was like climaxing on my drug. I was hitting its peak, and now it's like I'm sobered up. And I went, wow.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what I feel and how I think God can do whatever he wants, whenever he wants, but God definitely got his attention at that point.
Right.
I just prayed for him. And then I had the opportunity to share the gospel. It was great.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
You know, I that brings me up to a point you were talking about sharing with a family member. What do you do because a lot of times we spend the majority of our times, wouldn't you say, witnessing to people we don't know? What do you do when you witness to somebody that you see occasionally and you give them the gospel pretty hard? And then you're not just to hand them a gospel tract and say, hey, read it and talk to you later, but you hand the gospel, a tract, you talk to them for an hour, and you see them a couple days later.
Yeah.
How do you, what is that like? A lot of times I notice when I do that and they come up to me or I see them, they act like they owe me money. They're like, hey, yeah, and it's really very awkward. How do you follow up? What do you say to them? Did you like our conversation? Did you convert? Did you give your life to Christ? What do you say?
You know, it's the same thing that I would say if I were to stumble upon an individual and they're reading a gospel tract. You know, we go out in groups and we'll see somebody reading a tract that somebody else gave them. So I follow in the footsteps of Philip and the Ethiopian eunuch. Do you understand what you're reading? Remember when he was reading the book of Isaiah, or chapter 52 or 53 or something? And I would begin to explain to him. I'd answer any questions. Do you have any questions about what you're reading right there, or have you given it any thought?
Okay, so there would be a transition. Have you given any thought to what we talked about? Okay, I like that. I really didn't know really quite what to say. My first feeling was, hey, did you do what we talked about? Did you convert? Did you give your life to Christ? Stop timing me. That makes me very nervous.
No,
I'm the one that has to get back
I'm trying
to
to
work.
warn them that they haven't started the clock yet, so I have no idea when to stop.
Oh, gentlemen, clock was not started.
When do we stop? It says we have 27 minutes left. Daniel will let us know. He's pretty good. All right, question number 2 as we're moving along. That's why I was stalling.
Well, the question number 2 is a very similar to question number 1.
Okay.
So
I actually have something good to say about that.
Oh, okay. I do not.
All right, well, let me handle that. Here's the question. The question number 2. What do you say when someone shares a different worldview other than your own? Do you follow a pattern or a script when responding to them? So somebody comes along and they say, hey, I believe when we die, we all become one with the universe. That is my worldview.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say to somebody like that?
What do I say?
Yeah, do you follow a script? What's the next thing that you say?
I like the Twinkie, I call it the Twinkie defense.
The what?
The Twinkie defense. I say, well, my afterlife, what if I believe that I'm going to be sitting on a cloud chucking Twinkies at every single person that I come in contact with, and you're going to be one of them? Is that going to happen? Generally, they say no. That's not going to happen. I said, but it's going to happen in my worldview, in my afterlife. That's how I usually take it. And then we discover that we both have 2 different views of what's going to happen. And I say, one of us has to be right, one of us has to be wrong, correct?
And they might say, no, not necessarily.
And then we go back and forth for a while.
All right, so I've learned a couple things to say when somebody shares a different point of view. If somebody says, hey, I think we become one with the universe, and we turn into Twinkies.
Yeah.
Right. So I got 4 questions here that you could take down, which are very good conversation starters if you don't know where to go. Number 1, I say, hey, what do you mean by that? So you mean we actually turn into this Twinkie with little white filling? And they say, yeah. I go, oh. Question number 2, where do you get your information from? So
Right.
if they come up with their own definition, if they are able to decide for themselves what happens after they die, then does everybody get to decide what happens?
Well, yeah, then that's where the point is. What if mine conflicts with yours?
Right. And then number 3, I say, how do you know that to be true? Do you know that to be true? And the last one, do you care if that was true? Could you be wrong? Could you be wrong about that? And if they say, yes, I could be wrong, well, then they just help open themselves up to your worldview being shared.
That's nice.
Yeah.
And most people, if they're reasonable, will say, yes, there's a possibility I could be wrong. Really, when you say that most people are reasonable and say, yes, there's a possibility.
Could you be wrong?
Could I be wrong about what?
About your worldview.
About
Christianity?
No, absolutely not. I can't.
Yeah.
Sorry. Did you want to correct me?
No, I'm wrong all the time about a lot of things, but I'm not wrong about Christianity.
No.
I'm wrong about a lot of issues and facets, perhaps, dealing within Christianity.
Right.
But those are secondary, non-essential
Right.
issues.
Not
that
about
don't
the gospel.
Right.
And I try to say it not as arrogantly as I just sounded. But I will say absolutely not. And we can go through the reasons why we have assurance that it is true.
And it falls back upon the word, doesn't it?
Yeah.
All right, so number 3. I wanted to talk about this.
What?
Tell me about Roman and George.
Transition. That was nice.
Yeah.
You're supposed to. Okay.
I mean, speaking of scripts, right?
Yeah,
I follow
was the
a script,
transition
right?
question.
What is it?
You know what? Because a lot of people have been asking, so I asked Mark, bring it up. Okay?
So question number 4. Oh, wait,
I didn't finish. I'm going to give it 30 seconds. You know what? We are praying about it, and a lot of people have been asking what's going to happen, and the prayer and the desire right now is to next summer is to refilm the episodes 1 through 3 again, and probably even 4.
Can I make a cameo?
Yes.
Can I be like an extra walking by?
Sure. It's extra work is hard. Extra work is all day work. It's not
what's
just
the pay?
when someone walks by in a movie or that's all day work. You know that, right?
That's a long walk.
All day. Yeah. Over and over. It's a very slow process. But anyway, that is the plan. And so we'll keep you updated more about Roman and George. Thank you for those that have been praying about it and for purchasing it through Living Waters and supporting them through that and supporting us. And
I talked to Brad today, and he said he's creating your website.
He's creating a website, and we're going to do a social media package to kind of get it out there and get the word out there.
Sounds like work.
Yeah, it is. You know what?
Not
Ministry is work.
Yep.
Next
It
question.
Question number 4. How would you define failure in evangelism?
Well, we all like Tony's response. The only time you fail in evangelism is when you fail to evangelize. But I was trying to think about that on the way over here. Is there other opportunities to actually fail? What do you think? You're always asking me first. Gives me a chance to think of something.
Because I can build off of your answer.
Yeah, I know.
All right. The world does all it can to live and not die. God says if you want to live, then you must die. So I think that there has to come a place where we die to what we think is success, right? I think failure is not failing at something. It's not messing up, but it's not getting back up, right? I think the only true failure in evangelism is when you don't share. You fail to hand out that tract or to open up your mouth as you should. The results ultimately belong to God. You could say, hey, I failed in that conversation, but did you? Were you faithful with the message that God gave you to give? Yeah. And if you did, you're a success. Yeah. Allow the results to be left up to the Lord. You know, I came across real quick an interesting statistic. You know, Babe Ruth is somewhat known as a home run king, right?
Who?
Babe Ruth. Candy bar?
Oh.
Whatchamacallit?
Yes.
I had a Milky Way yesterday. It was good. It was $1.29 at 7-Eleven. Don't tell my wife. I'm not allowed to eat all that sugar, so good thing it's just between you and I.
Absolutely. And 29 people?
20, tens and tens of people. All right, so Babe Ruth, did you have any idea? Did you know this? That he led the American League in strikeouts in 1918?
Who did it?
1923, 1924, 1927, and 1928. He led the American League in strikeouts. But yet he's not hailed or remembered as a strikeout king, but rather a home run king. Right? He was an individual who said, you know, I'm going to continue getting back in the batter's box. I'm going to continually get up to bat. I'm going to continually practice. And when an individual says, hey, I fail to share, I'm not going to share because I might not know what to say.
Yeah.
Or I fear rejection. Then they fail. You know, we're to go on all the world and to preach the gospel, right? And allow the results to belong to God.
Okay. Have you ever been frustrated, though, when let's tell some examples of frustration when you actually do it, but you walk away and you're just kicking yourself or you're beating yourself up? Yes, you got to evangelize. Have you ever had times when you walked away and just, man, that was awful? And
you know,
why?
That's great. That's great. Here's why. That's a really good question. I have walked away frustrated, and the reason why I walked away frustrated was because I was trying to either win the argument, and I didn't care about their soul, and I was talking so fast. You know, Scripture says, in the multitude of words, sin does not lack. So I was talking so fast, trying to engage in the conversation, getting into this sword fight, that I failed to care for the individual. So what helped me from that point is to just be slow to speak. Listen to what they're saying.
Yeah.
You know, quick to love on them. And I'm going to share truth. But I don't need to win an argument. You know, I don't need to be right first, tops, recognized, regarded, or rewarded. I can come to the place where I say, you know, the battle belongs to the Lord. Slow to speak, listen to what they have to say, love on them, share the truth. Results belong to God.
Right. Yeah, I'll tell you, for the first 3 years of evangelizing, my biggest frustrations, because I would do it, but I realized, and it was a pride issue, is I would be frustrated by comparing myself to other people, other evangelists.
That frustrates me so much.
That was the worst. Yeah. So many things I want to say. You'd go up and do it, or you'd watch somebody else and say, man, I don't sound like so-and-so, I don't sound like so-and-so. And that was the way I frustrated myself. And you know what? It was pride and it was sinful, and that's something I had to deal with. But so not failure for me, it's frustration in evangelism, and I had to deal with that issue. And I'm sure some of you can relate. You say, man, I'll never sound like so-and-so. And man, you got to get rid of that pride. You got to just pray it off. You really do. Pray it away.
All right. Next question. Because of the drugs I took in high school, this must be a friend of yours, and my lack of study.
Who capitalized the H in high and the S in school? You don't do that. Oh, let's fix that right now. There you go.
Huh.
You don't capitalize high school.
I'll make sure I don't do that next time.
Please. Go ahead.
I mean, whoever did this, I'll make sure they don't do that next time. Because of the drugs I took in high school and my lack of study when I was there, I lose my train of thought when talking, and I'm not very smart. I feel handicapped. Can God really use me? So they're not very studious.
Well, of course.
Maybe one of your students.
Could be. No, you know what? I'm really not being funny. I read this and I went, oh, who doesn't feel this way? Who really doesn't feel this way? And I didn't even have the drugs. You know, I don't even have the excuse of saying, you know, my brain has been eaten away from years of drug abuse. Many, many times I've walked away and going, I'm just not very smart. This is when you cut in and say, Greg, yes, you are. No. I've been waiting. I kept waiting and waiting.
No, I'm just watching your microphone swing back and forth.
Yeah, he told me to tape it to my face. Yeah, that sounds like fun.
Squirrel. Sorry.
So yeah, of course, but again, and I don't want to sound rude because I deal with the same thing. You don't let pride get in the way of sharing your faith. I think if you're up there and you're preaching the gospel, even if you get up and you read the scriptures, God is using you. And if you don't do those things because, well, I'm not very smart, or I can't speak, I don't articulate well, and you don't, it really is it's a pride thing, and you gotta pray that, you gotta confess that. Do you agree or not? Would you like to say something about that?
That sounds good.
Okay.
Sounds good. You did good. Hey, I found an interesting thing. When I was going through the book of Judges, I found out that, there's 13 judges in the book of Judges. Right?
How many women?
One. Only one woman. Was that right?
Yeah. Was he right?
Yeah, no, there was. Okay, there's one woman. Okay, but did you know this? All right. I don't know how many judges there were, but of 13 judges that were in the book of Judges, 13 of them, I don't know how to word that. 13 of the judges in the book of Judges had handicaps.
Really?
Yeah, they had handicaps. And they could have had the same excuse that a lot of people have today. What was it? Moses said that he had an impediment of speech. It was his excuse. Right? We all have excuses as to why we don't share, why we don't do something. I have a friend who has 1/3 of the New Testament memorized. I think, well, I can never do what he does. I can't recite the scripture the way he can, so maybe I shouldn't share at all. Well, no, that's silly. Listen, God delights in using people who cannot pat themselves on the back.
Yeah.
And let me read a scripture here, and I'll let you read one too. 1 Corinthians 1:20-21, it says, "Where is the wise? Where is the scribe? Where is the disputer of this age? Has not God made foolish the wisdom of this world? For since in the wisdom of God the world through wisdom did not know God, it pleased God through the foolishness of the message preached to save those who believe. For Jews request a sign and Greeks seek after wisdom, but we preach Christ crucified. To the Jews a stumbling block, and to the Greeks foolishness. But to those who are called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ, the power of God and the wisdom of God, because the foolishness of God is wiser than men, and the weakness of God is stronger than men." Yeah. I'll let you read that.
Read the second one. 1 Corinthians 1:26-27. "For you see your calling, brethren, how that not many wise men after the flesh, not many mighty, not many noble are called. But God hath chosen the foolish things of the world to confound the wise, and God hath chosen the weak things of the world to confound the things which are mighty." And you know what? You made a good point. There's 1 point for you.
Okay.
Seriously, though, you can't pat yourself on the back. If you have some particular gifting or talent, you tend to say, "I can get myself some credit for this because I was a speech major, or something. I'm a professional debater." And when you struggle, the more you struggle, and the more you overcome that through the Lord, the more glory and credit He gets. And you know what? Cut yourself some slack too. It takes years and years, I'm sure, of continual practice. Anything that you do, you're going to have to practice it to polish it up and make it sound good. You know what I'm saying? Don't expect overnight you're doing this a month, and I don't sound like Ray Comfort, or I don't sound like Greg Elsasser or somebody like that, Give yourself some time. I was reading, actually, a biography on Bobby Fischer. Crazy. And he
the football player.
Yeah. And he played some 20,000 games before he even got close to the finals of the World Championship. 20,000 games.
Wow.
That's insane. That's why we preach the gospel to ourselves, not only to hear it every day, but preach it to yourself every single day, not just so you can hear it and it can sink in, but that's so you are also practicing it, and when you'll be ready to go out there on the streets.
Great. Next question. "I'm afraid that I won't be fruitful if I open air preach."
Where was that? Oh,
What do you think of that?
number 5. Well, what's the fruitful? What do you mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? Did you write that question?
I wrote them all.
Well, then what did you mean by the question?
I liked my
See,
answer.
right now, if I was
I like my answer. That's why
if I
I
was
put that.
grading your paper, D-.
But that's passing.
Not clear.
That's passing.
That is true. D- is passing.
D is the new C.
Yes, it is.
So I passed.
Yep.
Do I even have to give an answer if it's passing? I've already passed, and I haven't even given my answer yet.
I wish you would have been in my class just for 6 months. Answer the question, sir.
We're not called to be fruitful. We're called to be faithful.
D plus. Next question.
All right.
That actually is a really succinct way to put it. That's a bumper sticker. That's a bumper sticker ready to come. Ready
Wow.
to happen.
Hey, I'm not a bumper sticker type of guy, unless it is 180movie.com. Have you
What is
seen
it?
those bumper stickers?
What is it called?
180movie.com.
.com. Yes, I have. Those are
Show
neat.
me your tattoo. All right, hey, we do have 2 minutes. We could answer a couple questions in the chat room. Wow, there's a lot of questions.
Need to fix
Here.
Greg's mic. It's flopping all over the place. That's not a question. That is a statement.
Man, there's a lot of questions here. I don't even know where to begin.
Well, you
Pick a
have
number
1 minute.
between 1 and 163.
44.
Hello. If you stumble into sin, should you witness anyway, or should you get yourself right first?
If you know that you have sinned against the Lord, if you know it, you need to. I would say you need to get yourself right with the Lord.
Yeah, what are you waiting for?
Yeah.
I mean, how long does it take to get right with the Lord?
It's funny. My son did the same thing last night. He had done something pretty serious, and we talked about it. And we talked about it about 2 hours after the fact. And I asked him.
Is
I
this
said,
going to be a
"Have you
long
talked-"
story?
No, I'm wrapping it up quickly, unless
Right.
you keep interrupting. I said, "Have you talked to the Lord about it?" He said, "Not yet." And I said, "What are you waiting for? Why did you wait? Why didn't you knew immediately? Why didn't you take it to Him first?"
That's good.
So then I spanked him and sent him to bed.
Hello. Pop.
I
Do you
didn't
use your hand or use a paddle?
whatever's closest.
Well, I would only use a paddle
Yeah, I've heard the reason why you don't want to use the hand.
Yeah. if I had kids. Yeah, so it does take long to get right. We have 40 seconds. We have one more question. Here we go. I'm outgoing. My husband is not. He's a new Christian for 1 year. How do you let him take the lead in handing out tracts and talking to people?
How do you give him the lead?
Yeah. I have no idea. I would say you take the lead. Listen, you hand out tracts.
You need
do
coffee.
things. Ray Comfort is holding up a sign saying we need coffee. I don't like coffee. I wish I drank coffee.
I don't.
I
either.
like the
I've
smell.
never. I do too.
I feel like I'm a Mormon.
I have almost seriously have wanted to make coffee in our house just for the smell and then dump it. Love the smell.
Love it. All right, hey, well, that
Wait,
does
did you
it.
answer the
We are
question?
done.
Did you answer the
Yeah, I'd
question?
say, hey, you take the lead. So I would say, hey, we need to be encouraged, strengthened, unafraid, proclaim the gospel, go serve your king. Everything stops here.
See ya.
Bye, Mom.
You're full of it! Living Waters presents On the Box.